Jujutsu Kaisen, Chapter 261. Raw chapter has just been released, and we are into a banger episode of another spoiler and leak coverage. Gege is absolutely cooking in this series, as we will finally find out if the ghost, spirit, or silhouette Sukuna saw in the previous chapter was really Gojo, or is it someone else such as Takaba or Kenjaku like the theories in the fandom suggest? Of course, one of them is true because this leak by Pewpiece reveals that Gojo Satoru is officially back. However, that is not something you should be celebrating because instead of the real Gojo Satoru, the one who returns in the series is a Gojo controlled by Kenjaku's mind. There is one more revelation about the scars on Gojo's head, and we will get onto those parts later in the video. So hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to be updated for more videos as we finally dive into the Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 261 spoilers. The chapter begins with Yuji deciding that he will crush Sukuna's heart. It is a continuation of last week's scene, given that the previous episode revealed the Vibra Slap in Todo's hand and how overpowered Boogie Woogie has become. Sukuna was struck by his nephew's Black Flash and continuous smashes. Of course, this progress is thanks to Todo's high battle IQ, which puts 3 layers of deception to fool Sukuna into a mind game trap. Filled with anger, Yuji tears off Sukuna's chest, planning to deal the finishing blow to avenge his brother. However, despite the cursed technique burnout, Sukuna recovers a shimmer of his cursed energy and attempts to expand his malevolent shrine. In the midst of it all, what befalls the King of Curse's eyes is a vision of the man he once buried with his own hands, the departed spirit of the strongest. The spoilers continue with this translation from Miyamura. As soon as Sukuna chants domain expansion, he sees Gojo standing. In disbelief, Sukuna wonders if it's really Gojo Satoru, but pushes away that thought as he says it's impossible. The leaks hinted earlier that Kenjaku is in Gojo's body, and none would argue that this outcome is highly plausible. However, the actual event is slightly different from Pew's initial statement. After all, Yuta is the one inside Gojo's body, not Kenjaku. Yuta simply uses Rika to move his body. Man, this is really going off the charts. Even Sukuna doubted Gojo's comeback since he thought it was impossible. But Sukuna suddenly realizes who it is and punches Yuji away as he moves forward and says, "I apologize for underestimating you. I didn't know you were capable of going that far. Yuta Okotsu!" The speculations are finally confirmed because Sukuna addressed Gojo as Yuta. We will discover how and when Yuta planned all of these in a minute, so keep watching. In a flashback, Yuta decides to have Rika devour Kenjaku and copy his cursed technique, which will allow Yuta to change bodies. Maki objects to this plan, but Hikari says he has a condition. They are going to use this plan as a last resort when everyone's wiped out and they don't have any options. Kusakabe wonders if they can't just copy Limitless from Gojo's body. Shoko says, "You can't use Limitless without the 6 eyes." So Kusakabe replies, "Then just copy the 6 eyes." However, Shoko knows that the 6 eyes are a part of his physical body. In other words, it's not a cursed technique, so Yuta can't copy it. Afterward, Maki asks that since Yuta can use the copy cursed technique for only 5 minutes, what would happen later? Will Yuta die if he fails to return to his original body? In response to the question, Yuta says he doesn't know. Mei explains the pros and cons of Yuta copying Kenjaku's cursed technique. According to her, there's a possibility that after switching bodies, Yuta might lose his cursed technique and would have to live in Gojo's body forever. Mei also adds 3 things to keep in mind when doing this risky plan. First, if Kenjaku's cursed technique is of the constant or intermittent operation type, the physical body or the soul can't be maintained and he will meet his demise. On the other hand, if the cursed technique operates intermittently, Yuta won't immediately kick the bucket, but will eventually get onto that part. Lastly, if the cursed technique is a single-use, one-time technique, he can use Limitless even in the past 5 minutes. Most of all, Mei emphasizes this point. After the switching of the bodies is completed, it's possible that Yuta's cursed technique will be discarded and he'll live in Gojo's body from now on. Put simply, we might have Gojo back permanently, or at least his body, while Yuta will have to say goodbye to his original physical form. That said, it is only 1 out of 3 routes that Mei has mentioned, and it's highly plausible that Yuta has only 5 mere minutes to live. Yuta says that he knows this is a last resort, so first, he will try to fight Sukuna in his own domain. If he can't win, he'll accept Gojo's body. This refers to his fight with Maki, Yuji, and Rika back in chapter 249. Yuta's domain expansion, all-encompassing unequivocal love, was a significant part of Yuta's plan to possibly defeat the King of Curses via surprise attack. But if you remember, it was not enough, and Yuta was temporarily lost in the picture until now, his reappearance. Going back, Kusakabe says it's a good plan, but it's just not humane. Yuta replies, "What do you mean humane? We're about to fight the history's strongest Jujutsu sorcerer. If we can win just by throwing away our humanity, we shouldn't even be arguing about this." Yuta asks if everyone's afraid of becoming some monster to fight Sukuna. Maki rebukes Yuta, saying that everyone's just concerned about him. This makes Yuta emotional as he shouts to everyone and says, "What about Gojo-sensei? Is he not important? Haven't we been pushing all the burden of becoming a monster onto Gojo-sensei alone? If Gojo-sensei is gone, then who else will be the monster? If no one intends to become one, then I will." The scene shifts afterward, as it turns out that Gojo agrees to Yuta's plan to take over his body in case he loses. Apparently, Gojo was sure that he himself would win and not need Yuta's plan. We are still in the flashback when Yuta tells Gojo that he will take his body if he dies. Gojo says he's fine with that. After all, he has no intention of losing and doesn't care what happens to his lifeless body. Yuta and Gojo discuss the possibility of the former being a descendant of the Fujiwara or Sugawara clan. Yuta opens the topic by saying, "Oh, by the way, I was told I was a descendant of the Fujiwara bloodline. Didn't Gojo-sensei mention that I was a descendant of the Sugawara blood?" Gojo stresses that Yuta is really from Sugawara and they are distant relatives. He then asks, weren't Sugawara and Fujiwara on bad terms? Therefore, Yuta concludes that Uro must have misunderstood his clan, to which Gojo agrees because it's possible that both of them are right. Gojo says Yuta might have been born under better circumstances than him. So Gojo says if Yuta can't utilize that advantage, he's totally lame. This prompts Gojo to remind Yuta, saying, "Let's start off with your sloppy cursed energy. I've always told you to be careful about that." Gojo then asks his students to go away because he doesn't want them to see a gruesome sight, especially since he doesn't know what he's about to do is right. Gojo then leaves this statement: "If I lose to Sukuna and all the old geezers in the room are gone, Gakuganji Gramps will stand on top of the Jujutsu headquarters. If that happens, there won't be any more chaos like the post-Shibuya incident." Gojo once again tells his students to go back, but they refute him. Yuta tells Gojo not to try becoming a monster by himself again. Gojo replies, "That's something I can't do. At that moment, I was left behind. I have to catch up to him." The panels here show Gojo thinking about Geto, his old best friend, and how much his existence and all the happenings so far, both happiness and tragedies, mean to Gojo. The scene switches to Amai, Yuji's friend, explaining his cursed technique. He can amplify the sugar within himself and output it in some kind of way. It turns out that Shoko puts Amai on the medical team with Nida as support by having him supply their brain with some sugar using his cursed technique. The scene switches again. This time, Yuta is cut in half due to Sukuna's slash and has been rushed to the medical ward. Arata has used the cursed technique to prevent Yuta's wounds from worsening, so it might be too late. In this part, Yuta admits he's conscious, thanks to Rika, but he's starting to reach his limit. Shoko tells Yuta that she has already stitched up Gojo's corpse, so once Yuta switches, he has to activate the reverse curse technique at max capacity and complete the body. The flashback ends here as the leaks finally return to the present. As the tension rises, Sukuna and Yuta in Gojo's body both open their domain. The narrator intervenes, saying that Gojo has already shown the solution to Sukuna's open barrier domain. The chapter then ends with Sukuna using Malevolent Shrine and Yuta using Gojo's Unlimited Void. And finally, after a long time, the revenge match between the King of Curses and the strongest sorcerer begins. Man, this chapter is filled with many flashbacks, but I gotta say, this episode is insane. The flashbacks include no fillers, and all of them explain why and how Yuta occupied Gojo's body. There is a lot to talk about here, and I look forward to diving deeper into them in our upcoming chapter review. There will be a break next week, so the next JJK chapter leaks will be released on June 6th, 14 days from now. As I said, I will get into more details about the scenes in the upcoming Jujutsu Kaisen discussion, so hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this spoiler coverage. Also, drop a comment below and let me know what you think will happen to Yuta after the 5-minute countdown. Thank you for watching the video, JJK fans. That is all for now, and see you on the next one.